Marcus Webb was 31 years old at the start of all this, and by most measures he was doing well. Better than well, honestly. He'd worked his way up to regional sales director at a logistics firm downtown, a title that came with a corner office on the 14th floor, a company car allowance, and a salary that had recently crossed into six figures for the first time. He lived in a two-bedroom condo in the kind of neighborhood that had good coffee shops and worse parking. He drove a black BMW 5 Series that he'd bought himself with a cash down payment he was quietly proud of. His girlfriend, a woman named Priya, was smart and funny and had her own career, her own opinions, and her own very firm ideas about the future. They'd been together almost 3 years. There was a ring in a drawer in his nightstand that he hadn't quite gotten around to doing anything with yet, but the intention was there. Everything was moving in the right direction. Marcus Webb was, by any reasonable measure, a man whose life was on track. He tells Derek, later, when he's going back over all of it, that he almost didn't stop. That the man was just one of several people he passed on his walk from the parking garage to the office that Tuesday morning in March. He says this part a lot, like he needs Derek to understand that there was nothing special about it, nothing that made the man stand out. He was sitting on the steps outside a closed sandwich shop on Alderton Street, a paper cup on the ground in front of him, a cardboard sign resting against his knee that said simply, "Hungry." The man looked to be somewhere between 50 and 70. It was genuinely hard to say. His clothes were worn but not filthy. His face was weathered and deeply lined. He had sharp eyes, dark and clear and fully present in a way that Marcus noticed without quite registering. Marcus walked past him. He'd gone maybe 10 more steps when he stopped. He didn't know why. He just stopped, stood there on the sidewalk for a second, then turned around and walked back. He dug into his coat pocket, found a quarter, a single quarter, the loose change at the bottom of the pocket, and dropped it into the man's paper cup. The man looked up at him. He said, "God bless you, sir." Marcus nodded, gave a quick, close-mouthed smile, and kept walking. That was it. That was the whole thing. A quarter and a God bless you on a Tuesday morning. Marcus thought about it for maybe 30 seconds on the elevator ride up to 14. Then his phone rang and he didn't think about it again. 2 days later, his company car allowance was quietly restructured in a policy update he hadn't been notified about. The change clawed back $400 a month from his take-home. His manager apologized, said it came from above, said there was nothing he could do. Marcus was annoyed. He filed a complaint with HR. He moved on. He didn't connect it to the quarter. Why would he? He saw the man again 3 weeks later, different street this time, Pryor Avenue, 2 blocks from the restaurant where Marcus and Priya had dinner on Friday nights. Same worn clothes, same paper cup, different sign, anything helps. Marcus recognized the sharp, dark eyes before he recognized anything else. The man looked up at him and showed no sign of recognition whatsoever. Marcus remembers standing there for a moment, working out the odds of seeing the same homeless man on 2 different streets 3 weeks apart in a city of 400,000 people. He decided they were low, but not impossible. He opened his wallet. He had a 10 and 2 ones. He took out one of the ones and put it in the cup. The man looked at it, then up at Marcus. He said, "Every little bit counts, friend." Marcus walked away. That weekend, Priya told him she thought they should take a break from talking about the future for a while, that she felt like she needed some space to think. She said it calmly, over coffee on Sunday morning, in the measured way she said everything. Marcus sat there with his mug and tried to understand what he was being told. They didn't break up that morning, but something cracked. The following month, Marcus received notice that his position was being restructured as part of a department review. He wasn't being let go. They were very clear about that. He was being moved laterally to a regional coordinator role. Same company, no more corner office, significant pay reduction. He was still processing that when the BMW threw a sensor error that turned into a transmission diagnostic that turned into a repair estimate of $6,000. He'd bought an extended warranty, but the specific failure wasn't covered. His service advisor showed him the exclusion in the contract with the resigned expression of someone who'd had this exact conversation too many times. Marcus put the repair on a credit card and drove home in a loner. He saw the beggar for the third time on a Wednesday afternoon in May. This time the man was outside the parking structure where Marcus now parked. Since the lateral move, he no longer had access to the executive garage. The sign read, "Down on my luck, please help." Marcus stopped in front of him and looked at him for a long moment. The man met his eyes without flinching. Marcus says, and this is in one of the voice memos recorded the same evening, that he had a feeling standing there that he cannot adequately describe. Not quite recognition, not quite dread. Something in between, like looking at a word you've read 100 times and suddenly not being sure you know what it means. He opened his wallet and gave the man a 20. The man held the bill between two fingers and looked at it. Then he looked at Marcus and said, "You give a little, you get a little. That's how the world works, isn't it?" Marcus says the words bothered him the whole drive home. He couldn't say exactly why. Priya ended things officially 2 weeks later. She was kind about it and clear about it, and it was, by all accounts, the right decision for both of them. Marcus knew that. He didn't argue. He helped her move a box of her things out of his condo on a Saturday morning, and then stood in his kitchen afterward, feeling the specific silence of a space that used to have someone else in it. He was 3 months into the new role when his landlord informed him the building had been sold to a development company and his unit would not be renewed at the end of his lease. He had 90 days. He moved into a one-bedroom in a part of town he'd never spent much time in. Smaller, third-floor walk-up. The elevator was out of service for the first 6 weeks he lived there. The fourth encounter happened in July. Marcus was coming out of a grocery store in his new neighborhood, a place he still didn't feel at home in, when he saw the man sitting against the wall of the building next door. And here is the thing that made Marcus stop dead on the sidewalk, with his grocery bags cutting into his palms. The man looked different. Not dramatically, not in a way Marcus could immediately put his finger on, but his clothes were cleaner, or newer. His posture was slightly better. The cup in front of him had significantly more bills in it than Marcus had ever seen before, and the sign read, "Better days are coming." Marcus stood there, and the cold feeling from the parking structure came back, stronger this time. He reached into his wallet. He had $40 in cash. He put it all in the cup. He doesn't entirely know why. He says in the voice memo that it felt like the right amount, like it was expected, like somehow not giving it would be worse than giving it, though he couldn't explain the logic of that to himself at the time. The man looked at the money, then looked at Marcus with those sharp, clear eyes. He said, "That's very generous. Things have a way of evening out, you know." Marcus asked him his name. The man smiled, a slow, unhurried smile, and said, "You can call me whatever you like." Marcus walked home with empty hands and an empty wallet and a feeling in his chest he couldn't name. Within a month, he was let go from the company entirely, not the lateral role, completely let go. Budget cuts, they said. Last hired, first out. They gave him a decent severance and a recommendation letter and a handshake from a VP he'd met twice. He filed for unemployment the next morning at his kitchen table in the apartment with the broken elevator. This is the part where Marcus started keeping the voice memos. He says he started recording them because he needed to hear his own voice saying it out loud to know if it sounded as crazy as he thought it did. He'd been lying awake most nights by this point, running the sequence. Quarter, 20, the car allowance gone, Priya, the job restructuring, the condo, the transmission, the promotion that wasn't, all of it in order. All of it after an encounter with the same man. He told Derek. He laid the whole thing out over the phone one night, carefully, trying to keep his voice level. When he finished, there was a long silence. Derek said, "Marcus, you're describing coincidence, that's all." Marcus said, "I know." Derek said, "You know what you sound like right now." Marcus said, "I know what I sound like. I also know what happened." He started looking for the man deliberately after that. He's not proud of this part. He knows how it sounds, but he wanted to see him again, partly to prove to himself that it was nothing, that the man was just a person on a street with a cup, and partly because, and this is the part he struggles to say out loud, some small irrational part of him felt like if he could find him and not give him anything, maybe he could stop it. Like he could opt out. He found him in September outside a coffee shop 3 streets from his apartment. And what he saw stopped him so completely that a woman walking behind him actually ran into his back and muttered an apology as she stepped around him. The man was wearing a jacket Marcus had never seen before. Dark, clean, fitted. Not expensive exactly, but respectable. New shoes, and his cup, his paper cup, was gone. In its place was a proper hat, turned upside down on the pavement in front of him, and the bills inside it were not 1s and 5s. The man looked up and saw Marcus standing there. He smiled. He said, "I was wondering when you'd come back." Marcus's mouth went dry. He said, "You know who I am." The man said, "I know you've been generous. Generosity is rare. I remember it." Marcus looked down at the hat, at the money in it. He said, "You're doing well." The man said, "Better and better, I'm happy to say." He paused. "And you?" Marcus didn't answer that. He stood there on the sidewalk as the city moved around him, and he made a decision. He did not reach for his wallet. He turned and walked away, and he got 4 steps. Then he stopped and turned back around and gave the man everything in his wallet, $112, and walked away without a word. He records this in a voice memo 2 hours later, and when he gets to that part, his voice goes quiet and confused, like he's describing something that happened to someone else. He says,
"I don't know why I did it. I had decided not to. I had decided, and then I couldn't. I couldn't not do it. Like something was pulling. Like the decision had already been made without me."
He lost his apartment the following month. Not eviction. He couldn't make rent. He moved into Derek's spare room. The BMW was repossessed in November. He'd fallen behind on payments after the job loss and hadn't been able to catch up. He stood on the street and watched it get loaded onto the flatbed, and he felt, he says, almost nothing, which scared him more than grief would have. The 5th and final encounter happened on a Tuesday in December, almost exactly 9 months after the quarter on Alderton Street. Marcus was walking. He walked everywhere now, out of necessity, through the downtown district he used to work in. He hadn't been back there since the layoff. He's not sure what brought him there that day. He says in the voice memo that he woke up that morning feeling like he was supposed to go somewhere without knowing where, and he just started walking. He turned a corner onto Alderton Street. The man was not sitting on the steps of the sandwich shop. The man was standing on the sidewalk in front of it, hands in the pockets of a very good coat, charcoal grey, clearly expensive. watching Marcus come around the corner as if he had known he would. Marcus stopped about 10 feet away, and they looked at each other. The man had changed completely, and not at all. The sharp, dark eyes were the same. Everything else was different. He was clean-shaved. His posture was easy and assured. He wore leather shoes and a watch on his wrist that caught the December light. There was no cup, no hat, no sign. Behind him, parked at the curb, was a black BMW 5 Series. Marcus stared at it. His mouth opened slightly. He looked back at the man. The man said, "It's good to see you." Marcus said, "What is this?" The man reached into the pocket of his coat. He held out his hand toward Marcus, palm up. In it sat a single coin, old, heavy-looking, catching the light with the particular gleam of something that had been polished carefully. It didn't look like any currency Marcus recognized. Marcus looked at it and did not take it. He said, "What did you do to me?" The man was quiet for a moment, not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. Then he said, "You gave willingly, every time. I never asked for more than you offered." Marcus said, "The last time I didn't want to give it. I decided not to. And then I did anyway." The man tilted his head slightly. He said, "Did you? Or did some part of you understand, by that point, that giving was the only thing you had left to do?" Marcus had no answer for that. The man extended his hand a little further, offering the coin. He said, quietly, without performance, as simply as stating a fact, "Your change is my fortune." Marcus looked at the coin in the man's hand. He looked at the BMW at the curb. He looked at the man's coat and his watch and his shoes and the Alderton Street sidewalk where 9 months ago Marcus had dropped a quarter into a paper cup without breaking his stride. He took the coin. It was heavier than it looked, warm despite the December air. The surface was smooth except for markings he didn't recognize, letters or symbols worn almost to abstraction, a face on one side that might have been a person or might have been something else entirely. When he looked up, the man was moving toward the BMW. He opened the driver's side door with the ease of someone getting into a car he'd owned for years. He settled into the seat. He started the engine. Marcus heard it, a sound he knew, the exact sound of his car. He drove away without looking back. Marcus stood on Alderton Street alone with a coin in his hand that he still has to this day. Still cannot identify, still cannot explain, cannot match to any currency or any country or any period of history he or anyone else has been able to research. He stood there for a long time. Then he put the coin in his pocket and started walking.